Hello, and welcome to our video on genotypes and phenotypes. A genotype is the genetic makeup of an organism. It can be said that someone's genotype is the conglomerate of all of their genes. An individual's genotype can be determined by DNA analysis. Genotypes are inherited from our predecessors, and they serve as the code for what our observed characteristics will be. For example, they code for our physical characteristics as well as any diseases or genetic predispositions. Genes, which are the structures that combined make our genotype, can have different versions. We call these different versions alleles. For example, we have a gene that codes for hair color and another that codes for hair texture. Hair comes in different colors, as you, I'm sure, are well aware, such as brown, blonde, or red. It can also come as curly or straight. The color and texture of your hair will depend on what alleles for hair color and hair texture your individual parents donated to you. These alleles can be dominant or recessive. A dominant allele will always mask a recessive allele, meaning that if a dominant allele is present, it will always be expressed, no matter if it is accompanied by a recessive allele or not. In contrast, recessive alleles will only be expressed if they are accompanied by another recessive allele. Dominant alleles are always represented by a capital letter, and recessive alleles are represented by a lowercase letter. The letter used is arbitrary. You can choose whatever letter you want to represent a particular gene and the associated alleles. For example, let's assume the letter A denotes hair color. In hair color, the color brown is dominant over blonde and therefore would be represented by a capital A. Blonde is recessive and will be represented by a lowercase letter a. Since the allele for brown hair color is present, it will overpower the blonde allele, and the person will exhibit brown hair color. The combination of alleles from mom and dad are known as your genotype. Genotypes can be homozygous or heterozygous. A homozygous genotype means that the person inherited the same version of that particular gene, that same allele, from both parents. In our example, if one inherits a capital A from mom and a capital A from dad, the genotype will be capital A, capital A. Since they are the same, it is a homozygous genotype. The same would be true if one inherits two lowercase a's. However, if one inherits a capital A from one parent and a lowercase a from the other parent, then the genotype would be heterozygous. The observable characteristics that result from the genotype are known as your phenotype. In our example, since capital A denotes brown and brown is dominant over blonde, which is denoted by a lowercase a person with a capital A genotype will have a brown phenotype. A person with a capital A lowercase a genotype will still have a brown phenotype, but a person with a lowercase genotype will have a blonde phenotype. Another example of a phenotype would be someone's blood type or their height. Let's do a practice question. Let's say that an individual has the following genotype: capital D, lowercase d. Is this individual considered homozygous or heterozygous for that particular genotype? What if we say that capital D denotes dimples and lowercase d means no dimples? What phenotype would the individual with the capital D lowercase d genotype have? Would they have dimples or not? The genotype capital D lowercase d is a heterozygous genotype because the individual has two different versions or copies of that gene, meaning that mom and dad gave this individual a different version of that gene that codes for dimples. If capital D denotes dimples and lowercase d means no dimples, and the individual is capital D lowercase d like in our question, then what would be their phenotype? Based on the letters, we know that dimples is dominant over no dimples, which means that whatever it is present in will express itself. Therefore, in this case, the person will show dimples, even though they also have the recessive, no dimples form of that gene in their genotype. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.